poison him, then arrange and decorate the corpses in lifelike poses and call them his masterpieces.
How did you guys end up catching him?
Hello everybody, welcome back to Screenstars. I'm here today to bring you my review for the 2022 serial killer thriller Mindcage, a film that is directed by Mauro Borelli and it stars Martin Lawrence, Melissa Roxburgh and John Malkovich. Now the film focuses on two police detectives played by Martin Lawrence and Melissa Roxburgh who are chasing a serial killer. Now, 5 years previously, we learned that there was a serial killer called The Artist, played by John Malkovich, who used to kill and preserve women and then, put them on display in like an artistic way. He was caught by Martin Lawrence and his partner back in the day and imprisoned. However, there appears to be a copycat serial killer on the loose that is copying the artist's work very, very closely. And they don't have any clues, so they decide that Melissa Roxburgh's character, Mary, is going to approach John Malkovich in prison to ask for his help. He agrees to help, but he's got some things that he wants in return, like he wants his death sentence revoked and is some artist equipment being delivered to the prison and all this kind of stuff. And then he agrees to help in order for them to track down this new serial killer. Right, what are my thoughts on Mindcage? Well, I have to say, guys, if this film sounds remarkably like Silence of the Lambs, then yes, you are absolutely right. This is a very poor version of Silence of the Lambs, unfortunately. I like serial killer films. I like thrillers like this. I like the concept. I like the idea. The execution here is pretty catastrophic, I have to be honest. Like I said, it's so much a carbon copy of Silence of the Lambs. I mean, early on, it felt to me like they were blending a few different films. It felt like they were getting some inspiration from Seven, some inspiration from Silence of the Lambs, and some inspiration from Dexter. In particular, season 6 of Dexter. You know, when they had the Doomsday Killer. I think it was Colin Hanks that played the Doomsday Killer, who used to like display his victims in more extravagant ways. It reminded me of bits and pieces of all of those films. And then at one point in this film, it just kind of then completely goes for the Silence of the Lambs angle, because there is a woman abducted who is the governor's, I think it's his daughter, the governor's daughter, something like that. Anyway, very similar to what happened in Silence of the Lambs. So it becomes like a countdown then. They need to kind of get the information they need to find the serial killer before the governor's daughter is killed, or whoever it might be who's connected to the governor. And at that point, you're kind of like, oh, God, at least try and do something original with this. And then it tries to flip it a little bit at the end and put like a bit of a supernatural or paranormal, I don't know, some kind of twist on it that is so ridiculous, you just can't forgive it, the film. Now, there's a couple of moments in this film where it hints at the ending that you get, but you're thinking to yourself, no, they wouldn't do that because that's just stupid. But they do it. So the last quarter of this film, you just kind of mouth is wide open, like they've actually done that, and it's ridiculous. So ridiculous. It tries to go from, like I say, a fairly poor but grounded, like serial killer thriller film, and later on it puts like this paranormal supernatural twist on it, or whatever you want to call it. And it just doesn't work at all in any way, shape or form. And the sad thing is here, you've got Martin Lawrence and John Malkovich, two very recognisable names. Now, John Malkovich is a fantastic actor. And he's probably the best thing in this film. I mean, I think Melissa Roxburgh is decent and she tries her best as the other detective partner of Martin Lawrence. But John Malkovich does the best he can with this material. He kind of hams it up, playing the serial killer guy. But he ain't no Hannibal Lecter, and he ain't no Anthony Hopkins. And it just becomes a cheap Poundland version of Silence of the Lambs. And Martin Lawrence, well, There's a reason you haven't seen Martin Lawrence in many dramatic roles. Have we ever seen Martin Lawrence in a dramatic role? I could be wrong. Maybe there has been, but I can't think of one. And there is when you watch him in this, you understand why you don't see him doing a lot of dramatic roles. He ain't believable. And he just isn't great in this film. And that doesn't please me to say it. He's just not great in this film. It feels like he's uninterested. His dialogue's dull. It's delivered in a fairly stilted and monotone way. He doesn't feel like he's supposed to be like this police detective full of regret and passion and you know what I mean, all this kind of, and there's none of it there. He don't portray any of it. And maybe it's because he knew as an actor that the film is garbage, and he knew what they were going to do. But at the end of the film, he thought, "What's the point?" I don't know, but either way, it ain't great. And it's full of scenes where the film feels like it has to over-explain everything. That just frustrating. It has to over-explain the childhood of the artist, the serial killer played by John Malkovich. Keeps doing that and explaining that and doing flashback scenes of him when he was a boy, and we get this pointless plot line of this detective, Mary, played by Melissa Roxburgh. You get this weird plot line of her with a relationship with her father, and then she ends up shacking up with the priest. It just goes nowhere. It's like, well, where we're going with this? What is the point of these plot lines and storylines? They make no sense. And then there's like this homeless guy that's chasing her, basically, this Mary character, this detective. He keeps turning up and harassing her and chasing her and scaring her, and you kind of think, well, how does he fit into the film? And then when you find out how he fits into the film later, it just makes less sense. It's one of those films that if you do manage to stick it out till the end, you'll wish you hadn't, if that makes sense, because the ending is just so annoyingly bad. I was really disappointed with this one. I had high hopes, but it is exactly what I said. It's a Poundland Silence of the Lambs, unfortunately. If that's something you're interested in, give it a go. But I strongly don't recommend that you do, because I think you're only going to be disappointed with this one. So thanks for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed this review. I'll be back with more reviews and content on the channel very, very soon.